We come to you today on what may well be the most dangerous day of the crisis, maybe even one of the most consequential days. Because last night, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, took to social media, and what he said should worry the entire world. In an abuse-filled post, he threatened to bomb Iranian power plants and bridges, civilian infrastructure. Now think about that for a moment. If Iran were to attack the Brooklyn Bridge, it would be called terrorism. But when the US threatens to strike civilian targets, we are told that this is strategy. This is not strategy. This is escalation. And it is escalation of the most dangerous kind. Because once you start talking about civilian infrastructure, you are crossing a line. A legal line, a moral line, a strategic line. And once crossed, that line is very hard to come back from. Iran has already responded. It has warned of retaliation, not just military targets, but every energy infrastructure across the Gulf, across Israel. So what are we looking at now? Is it not just a war? It is a widening circle of risk. And that circle now includes civilians, economies, and entire societies. At the same time, the American president has set a deadline for a deal, a deadline for reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Deadlines in war are dangerous because when they are not met, they force action. And that action is almost always escalation. Now add to this the events of the last few days. 2 American fighter jets shot down, a rescue operation launched inside Iran, details still unclear, and we're not sure what actually happened. But what we do know is that more aircraft may have been lost. And yet, the president has declared it a great success. This is where the picture becomes clearer. There is a narrative, and then there is reality. And the two are moving further apart. Now step back, look at the global picture. Because something else is happening quietly but very clearly. The US is being left out of a lot of things. Europe is talking to Iran, holding its own meetings, exploring its own pathways, and slowly, very slowly, moving away from Washington. For a country used to leading alliances, this is unfamiliar territory, and it shows. Now look at the incentives, because every player in this conflict is calculating. The US needs a deal. Its economy is under pressure. This war is costing it billions of dollars every single day. Billions. Put that into perspective. Pakistan negotiates for months for a few $1 billion from the IMF. And here we have a war burning through that amount every few days. At the same time, there are signs of something deeper. Oil transactions increasingly being discussed in currencies other than the dollar. That is not just economics, this is geopolitics. And now look at Israel, rogue Israel, under pressure. Cities like Tel Aviv and Haifa taking hits, economic activity disrupted, people leaving. But Israel says it can't afford a stronger Iran. For them, this is existential for Iran. So they want Iran weakened, not managed, not contained, weakened, which is absolutely wrong. But which also means that the incentive is not ceasefire. The incentive is continuation. Now come to the Gulf. The GCC countries, they have paid a heavy price. They've provided space, air corridors to the US, and in return, they have taken hits, economic, strategic, reputational. Places like Dubai and Doha, built on stability, now facing uncertainty. And that changes calculations, quietly but significantly. And now Iran, a country under sustained attack by the most powerful military machine in history, and yet it has stood its ground. It has struck back. Air bases, radars, fuel infrastructure, assets that cost billions, and then the most consequential move of them all, the Strait of Hormuz closed. And with that, the world economy brought to a standstill, supply chains disrupted, fuel shortages, rationing in multiple countries, fuel running low, markets reacting. This is leverage, real leverage. And it has forced the world to pay attention. Now, Ask yourself a simple question. Why would Iran rush into a deal when it has the upper hand in pressure? When it has seen arguments and agreements which have been broken before? When it is being attacked even as talks are discussed? From Tehran's point of view, time may not be the enemy, time may be the strategy. And yet, here's where we come to the important point. This is precisely the moment where Iran needs to think carefully. Because having the upper hand does not always mean holding on to it for too long. In fact, history tells us the best time to negotiate is when you are strong, not when you are weak. Right now, today, Iran has leverage, economic leverage, strategic leverage, global leverage. It has shown it can absorb pressure and impose costs. But that leverage is also an opportunity to shape the outcome, to lock in the gains, to define the terms of engagement. The longer this continues, the higher the risk of miscalculation. And miscalculation in a conflict like this can undo everything. That is why all sides need to look seriously at diplomacy. And this is where Pakistan's initiative becomes critical. Because what Pakistan is offering, it's not just mediation, it is a starting point, a structured path to begin ending this conflict, a ceasefire, talks, protection of civilians, reopening of vital trade routes. These are not abstract ideas. These are immediate necessities. And at this moment, this may be the best chance available. Not a perfect solution, but a realistic one. And in war, realistic options are often the most valuable ones, which is why the need for diplomacy is greater than ever. Pakistan has already initiated that process, and now with growing global support, that effort is gaining structure. So we have two tracks: escalation and diplomacy. One deepens the conflict, the other seeks to resolve it. And right now the balance between those two is becoming more critical by the day. So as we move closer to the deadline set by the US President, the question is simple. Will there be a deal or will there be more escalation? Because one leads to relief, the other to something far more dangerous. And that is why, one of the most consequential days of this conflict.